Awesome. You've probably heard the saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So when the Solution Tree art team came back to me with this design of this front cover, I was really excited because there are clearly 1,000 words that come from this image. So I'd like to invite you to take a moment and chat in. What are some words or phrases that come to mind for you as you see this image from the front of this book? Chat them in. Thank you, Arlen. Balance, a couple of balances. Paula as well. What else? Oh, balance is really coming through. Support, yes. Stability, building, juggling and balancing, yes. Calming. Oh, yes, the colors. I love the colors. They're one of my favorite things about this cover. Uniform, balancing, support, diversity. Yes, I love this. Thank you so very much. And we could go on and on. You know, there's many terms. Thank you, support, Zen, and pillars. Some of the other phrases that I've heard people talk about is focus, results, thinking outside the box, right? You've got that green box around the outside, but then that purple image that goes outside the box. And it's also going forward, right? So like we're moving forward. So many images, and we could spend quite a bit of time looking at this and thinking about this work of the teacher team leader. And I think it just encapsulates the work of this book, because that's all of those terms or phrases and more are what this book is about. So let's think about for a second this idea, though, that comes from Rick DeFore and Bob Marzano. They say that no single person has all the knowledge, skills, and talent to meet the needs of a school or all the needs of every child in every classroom. No matter how much you know, no matter how good you are at it, no matter how much innate talent you might possess, none of us by ourselves can meet the needs of all kids in all of our classrooms. So let me lay out for you like some if-then scenarios. So if this is true, if it's true that no teacher can meet the needs of all of their students, and if it's true that the most promising strategy for improving teaching and learning is the implementation of PLC principles and processes, and if it's true that the team is the engine for that improvement, and that if the team leaders are needed to maximize effectiveness, then, right? So there's a whole bunch of ifs there. Can't meet the needs of all kids. The most promising strategy of PLC. The team is the engine, and team leaders are really critical for maximizing team effectiveness. Then, what is it that a teacher team leader needs to know and be able to do in order to be successful? That's what we're going to explore here in this little hour session as a kind of an overview of this book that just came out, the Teacher Team Leader Handbook. So during this time, as you saw from the advertisements, there's three things we're going to go after. First of all, what are the three responsibilities of the teacher team leader? Secondly, what are some assumptions and mindsets that might be helpful for you in being able to facilitate that team collaboration? And then finally, we're going to explore just a handful of some simple actions that really have the potential for transforming team functioning. Now, I do want to mention one more time, Arlen had it in the chat, but I'm going to put it in the chat again. You can get the digital handouts for this slide, for this presentation, both the handouts and a copy of these slides at my website, which I just put in the chat, tinyurl.com/put-the-C-in-PLC. That will take you there where you can get it. And I will also be doing a giveaway. I'm going to give away a couple copies of this book. I don't know. It depends on how many people tweet out, like, or tag me on LinkedIn or Facebook, or sign up for my newsletter. Well, any of those things. But I'll go through after this is over at 4 o'clock and go through Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, which all of those contact informations are on that handout. Tweet out something. Share something on Facebook, tag me so that I know that you did that. Otherwise, I won't know. So tag me, and you might get a chance. You might get a copy of my book sent your way, and I might even ruin it with my signature, so you won't be able to sell it for as much on eBay. So anyway, those are the three things we're going after, and I look forward to giving away a few copies of my book. So here's our agenda based on those three outcomes. Welcome. We're going to dig into some responsibilities, the assumptions and the mindsets, these Simple moves and strategies. I'm going to identify three, and then we'll leave a few minutes at the end for some questions and answers. So before, though, we get into this, the responsibilities, let's be really clear about the purpose of the team. And I love this very simple definition from Ken Williams. He says that the purpose of the team is to guarantee that all students learn team identified, grade level essential outcomes. And those are the key terms. I think many times we kind of get lost in the minutia of teamwork, and we're not quite sure what the purpose is. Is it to plan field trips? Is it to make sure that we've got permission slips going home? Is it so we have schedules laid out the way they're supposed to be? What's the purpose of the team? And Ken Williams is very clear that in a professional learning community, the purpose of the collaborative team is to guarantee, that's a big word, guarantee. We want to make sure all kids learn whatever the team identifies as grade level essential outcomes. That is the backdrop of the role of the teacher team leader, which then gets into these three responsibilities. So let's go into those three responsibilities. Three. I propose, I've never seen anybody say this about a teacher team leader, so I pulled the research and pulled this all together, and I have identified what I think are three responsibilities. The first responsibility of a teacher team leader, and this is the absolute most important, is to make it safe. Psychological safety is the number one factor for being able to have effective functioning of a team. Psychological safety involves two things. First of all, it involves the degree to which the members read social sensitivity clues, nonverbal clues. I can look at Arlen and I can see, Arlen, I must have said something that upsets you. Tell me more about what you're thinking, right? I'm reading social cues from each other. All of the moves and techniques in this book are about your ability to develop your social sensitivity skills. The second factor in making it safe is equity of turn taking. Equity of turn taking. That means that no one person is dominating and no one person is sitting there quiet the whole time. So we got to make it safe. And those are the two things that are addressed in this book. Making it the psychological safety is through the moves and techniques, and the equity of turn taking comes through the strategies. That's your first responsibility. The second responsibility as a teacher team leader is to build capacity. Building capacity comes down to two things. First of all, it's understanding why it is what we're doing. And then second of all, it's then knowing what to do. If we don't build capacity, and if the teacher team leader is simply doing the work for the team, then as soon as that teacher team leader goes away, somebody else comes in, right? And they don't know how to do it, and everything falls short. So we want to make sure that the teacher team leader is making it safe, and it's building capacity. Now, the third responsibility is one that is what most people talk about. I contend that it's the least important of these three responsibilities. It is a responsibility, but it is to do the work. There's lots of resources on that. I don't touch the responsibility of doing the work in this book because there's lots of other resources on that. I also think it's the least important. First of all, your responsibility is to make it safe. And second of all is to build capacity. So I've been talking for a little bit around the role of the team to guarantee that all students learn grade level team identified essential standards, and these three responsibilities of the teacher team leader. Let's take a moment, pause, take some notes, chat in. Which of those three would you say you or your colleagues or your principal, like you don't have to say who, but like which ones of those would you say are prioritized? And based on what you've learned, how has your thinking shifted? Take a moment, jot down your thoughts, or chat it in, please. Thank you. Well, Yolanda, building capacity. I'm assuming that means that's the one that's currently prioritized. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, they're coming in now. Denise, thank you. Capacity. Lucy, prioritizing making it safe. Yeah. Everyone is heard. Yeah. Making sure everyone's comfortable. Number one. Helping teams build psychological safety. 1 and 2 are both important. Yeah. Thank you. Laura. Yeah. Number 3, but looking forward to number 2. Awesome. I love this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Allison. Yeah, teams that tend to focus on doing the work find that if there's not psychological safety, then can't move forward. Right. Thank you. This is fantastic. Yes, Anna. If you're doing 1 and 2, 3 can be considered done. Um, and Katie, need for intentionality. Yeah, thank you for bringing this up because making it safe is not the same as liking each other, and we confuse the two. Psychological safety is much, much more than good food, good snacks, spending time together. I've been told that the LA Lakers from, was it the 80s or the 90s, that won like 6 or 7 championships in a row, um, couldn't stand each other off the court. But on the court, look out. So psychological safety isn't about liking each other, although we prefer that, right? It's much more pleasant to be with people who we like. Liking each other is not equal to psychological safety. Yeah. Oh man, this is so awesome. Thank you. We could spend a whole webinar just on these 3 responsibilities and really dig into it. And chapters 1 and 2 of my book really go into these 3 responsibilities and how they apply to your setting. So let's, now that we've kind of got that foundation of the role of the team and the responsibilities of the team leader, now let's go into some assumptions and mindsets that might be helpful for that team collaboration. So first of all, what are assumptions? So you probably heard the saying of, if you when you assume something, you divide that word up and it comes into a few different words. I love this definition from Dennis Sparks. He says an assumption is that which we hold to be true. And notice that true is lowercase, right? So it's not capital T true, it's lowercase true. And it's what we hold to be true. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a fact. So these assumptions that I'm going to raise for you are things that they may not actually be so, but I'm going to hold them to be true about others. And in doing so, that will help me to them differently. Sometimes I might even have to hallucinate that these are true. However, I think it's important to do that. So the first assumption that I hold about other people is that people are doing the best that they can. It may not be to my standard or even to their own standards that they want to be. But if I assume that others are doing the best that they can, I will treat them differently because of that. A second assumption that I propose that's helpful for teacher team leader to have is that you can only control you. Well, I would like to think that I control other people. Really, the reality is no, I can only control me. I can't control my spouse. I can't control my children. I can only control me. And so if I start from that foundation and then leverage this moves, techniques, and strategies that I share later in this book to help to influence other people, but recognize that I can't control them, that's a very helpful assumption to have, the teacher team leader. Third, behavior communicates. Now, I purposely did not say all behavior communicates, because not all behavior does communicate, but behavior does communicate. And the example that you may have heard of other people talk about, like if somebody has their arms crossed, they might be communicating that they're unhappy with something. They also might just be cold. So while the behavior is communicating, we don't necessarily know what it's communicating. However, there are certain cues we can look for. This gets to that social sensitivity, responsibility number 1 of making it safe to recognize behavior of others. The fourth assumption that I offer as a helpful assumption for teacher team leaders is that people really do want to get stuff done. I have never heard a teacher walk out of a meeting, or administrator, I've never heard of anybody, any person, walk out of a meeting that was a complete waste of time and say, yeah, I'm really glad that hour was wasted. I'm never going to get that back. I'm really glad for that. It just doesn't happen. So I want to assume that other people do want to get stuff done. And if they are pushing back or, they're just pushing back, they're communicating something to me. And so I need to better understand that. And finally, the fifth assumption that I raise is that conflict really is good. Now, We want that conflict to be cognitive conflict. We don't want affective conflict. When there's affective conflict between us as human beings, that gets in the way of relationships. However, we do want to have cognitive conflict. Maybe you've heard the saying that if there's three people in the room and we all agree, two of us are unnecessary. So if we frame conflict as a way to better understand each other's perspectives and come to a decision that's going to be the best decision for this team and ultimately our students, then conflict is changed. There's a different way that we approach conflict. So those are 5 assumptions that I offer. Take a moment. Let's just chat in. Which ones of these might be a strength for you in your work with colleagues? Of that 2 and 4, yeah. And 3, people behavior communicates. Yeah, lovely variety. Love this. Interesting. Nobody has put 5 yet. Aha, there we go, Paula. We got somebody who put in there conflict is good as a strength for you. Oh, that's awesome. I love all of your comments and reflections here. Now, I would also offer that these assumptions as things that I hold to be true, because they're not fact, um, there may be other assumptions that might be helpful. So as you move forward in your work in leading teams, it may be helpful for you to think about, are there other assumptions that you have? Are there some of these assumptions that you're like, Chad, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not a helpful assumption, but this one is. And so I'd encourage you to think about, like, are there other assumptions that you hold about others that may be helpful for you in moving the work forward? And Katie, thinking a good reader of people, what's said and what's not said. Yes. That's so important, right? That's that social sensitivity to be able to tell from people's body language, their facial expressions, their hand positioning and movement, their head movement, etc. Awesome. Okay, so those are the assumptions now that I think are helpful. Now, there's also some mindsets that I identify, and defining mindsets. I love this definition that mindsets are attitudes that lead to action. And so with that in mind, each of these mindsets, which I so let me step back. I like that definition because ever since, God bless her, Carol Dweck, I love her work around growth mindset. And since that time, people just use the word mindset for just about everything. And so there's not a lot of clarity about what mindset is. So I love this definition that it's an attitude that leads to action. So in that vein, each of these mindsets begins with a verb or infinitive. I don't know. I didn't teach English, so English teachers can correct me on this. But each of these begins with an action. So the first mindset that I propose that's really critical for teacher team leaders is to see in others what they don't yet even see in themselves, to draw out from them what they may not even see in themselves. And when I have that mindset, I'm going to behave differently, treat them differently. A second attitude that leads to action that I think is helpful is this idea of being humble with a posture of learning. I do this work full time where I get to work with amazing educators like you every day and all over the country. And so I get to go in all kinds of schools, and every school, without exception, has some kind of a poster on the wall that says something like this: mistakes are the gateway to learning. You probably have something like that in your school. I've never seen any of them that have little asterisks and then down on the bottom a little small print that says, unless you're an adult. Mistakes are the gateway to learning. This is how we learn. And so as a teacher team leader, having that humility, having that posture of learning where we're gonna make mistakes. Let's just put that out there. That's how we learn. It's okay. So give yourself permission and then act, right? Attitudes that lead to action. I'll act in such a way that shows that you're here to learn. And then this third mindset actually was almost made its way into the title of the book because I think it's that important. But I love this third mindset. to spread the contagion of joy. I love that. Emotions are contagious. Knowledge is not contagious, right? If you walk into a room, other people in the room aren't going to know what you know. But if you walk into a room, other people will feel what you feel. You know that, right? Somebody walks into a room full of energy and happiness, or if they walk in sad and depressed, those emotions are contagious. Other people pick them up. And so, as a team leader, joy is an emotion that you can intentionally and purposely spread, that contagion of joy. Now, please hear me, don't hear me saying meanings are Comedy Central, right? That's not what we're talking about. Although a joke here and there, nothing wrong with that. Teams that are doing good work are enjoying the work, are enjoying each other's company, and that contagion of joy spreads. So, based on those mindsets, now let's take a moment. You're seeing the pattern of me talking for a little bit and then you jotting down some thoughts. Thinking about these mindsets, what next steps might you see for yourself? Take a moment, chat it in. Thank you, Billy. Changing your outward attitude. Yeah. Number one is the next step. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Lucy. Appreciate that. All that vulnerability too. And I'm not sure exactly, but maybe that humility with the posture of learning, spreading joy. Yeah, yeah. Moving to action. Thank you, Katie. Yeah, Mike. Oh yeah, spreading difficult. Oh, at this time of the year, Mike, you have to bring that up. Yes, this is particular this time of the year. Yeah, I have a colleague though, a friend and a colleague who wrote an astonishing endorsement for this book. He sometimes starts his trainings. Kendall Zoller, who's probably the world's premier expert about education, communication intelligence. He sometimes starts meetings, we all have thousands of choices that we make every day. And one of the choices is to be miserable or to be joyful. And they both take the same amount of energy, but I choose joy. And so like that framing of this is right, joy is a choice. Thank you. All right, let me come back to some of these. Yeah, Marie said, yeah, the joy can change the direction of meaning. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. JC. Yeah, the joy is really important. Oh, and that's JC. I'll have to slip you a 20 later because that's exactly one of the strategy we're going to be talking about. Is we don't want to waste 30 minutes of the meeting. Yeah, always willing to learn something new. Yes, Erica, much easier with summer on the horizon. I love this. Thank you. Yes, Patrick, yes, 3, but man, is it tough. Yeah. So I will share some with you some ideas that may be helpful for you. So here's where we are in this afternoon's webinar. So we started out with these 3 responsibilities. So take a moment, think about in your head, retrieval practice, right? What are those 3 responsibilities? So the first one is to make it safe. The second one is to build capacity. Third is to do the work. That was the first responsibility. The second responsibility then is to I shared these assumptions and mindsets. I'm not going to ask you to share those back, but those are some assumptions and mindsets that might be helpful. And now we're going to dig into just a handful of simple actions that can transform team functioning. So that's where we are in the work. Sorry, there we are in some moves and strategies. So let me just say a word about the difference between these 2 ideas. So there's moves and techniques, and there's strategies. So here's how I define those. Basically, is moves and techniques are things that you do yourself, and strategies are those things that we do together as a team. And what I've done is I've identified 40 moves, techniques, and strategies that are all pretty darn simple that can really move the work forward. And so you have them listed for you on the screen. They're also in the handout. There they are. Those are the 40 moves, techniques, and strategies that I detail in the book. And I'm just going to stop for talking for a minute. And as you read through them, think about which ones of these might you want to learn more about. You don't need to chat it in. Just you can like jot down which are ones that you want to learn more about. Maybe about 10 more seconds. Awesome. Thank you. So I love it. This is probably piquing your curiosity and generating more questions than answers. So these are the 40 moves, techniques, and strategies. Excuse me. So before we dig into a few of these real quickly, let me share with you kind of the overall structure of the book. So the first half, which is what we've dealt with up to this point in this webinar, is who you are as a person. This is the role, the responsibilities, the assumptions, and the mindsets. Without clarity about that role, the responsibilities, and mindset assumptions, the second half of the book, which is what you do, can become manipulative. And we don't want that. So it's really important that these go hand in hand, who you are and what you do. Sometimes I might refer to that as your being and your doing. So up to this point, we've talked about the being. Now we'll look at some of the doing. So moves, techniques, and strategies. Moves and techniques, I do it. Strategies, we do it. Each of these moves, techniques, and strategies is broken down into these components. So there's a description of each. So like some of you are saying, what does anonymize it? What is frozen gesture? What are these things? So there's a description of what it is. And the moves and techniques largely come from the communication intelligence worlds. These are nonverbal skills that we subconsciously or unconsciously use. And by being aware of them and making a few different tweaks, we can be much more impactful in how we use those. Again, if we're not using them with the right mindsets and assumptions, they will be manipulative, or at least perceived as manipulative. And we know that that's not conducive to team function. So each of these describes what is it, anonymize it, what is it? Then there's one or more tools to help with that, followed by reflective questions, usually 2 to 4 reflective questions as you implement them, because they are things that have to be practiced. You have to try them out, maybe in the mirror or with your family at the dinner table or with a colleague who's a close friend, and then in a team. And as you go, as you try these things out, then you can reflect on what worked, what didn't work, etc. So I have some reflective questions. Almost every one of these 40 actions also has next level tips included. So what that does is say, okay, so if you're really good at this, how might you combine it with other moves, techniques, and strategies to become even more impactful? So each of those moves, techniques, and strategies has those 4 elements: description, tools, reflective questions, and next level tips. These moves, techniques, and strategies, I don't just go through them straight through. What I do is I divide them and say, okay, these are the ones to get started. I think I identified 12 these are getting started moves, techniques, and strategies. And here they are. Then at the end of that chapter is a vignette, a story of a real world teacher who's trying to move their team forward. For you to then, as a reader, reflect and say, okay, these are moves, techniques, and strategies that I learned in this chapter. Here's how I would apply them with that teacher. And then I give an answer, how I might approach the work with that person. So that's the getting started. Then there's a chapter with these, about a dozen of these moves, techniques, and strategies that are for gaining momentum. That's next chapter. So we got getting started, then gaining momentum. Then the third chunk is around overcoming obstacles. And then finally, just moves and techniques. Actually, I think they're just techniques on refining your skills. So that's kind of the order in which I go with these moves, techniques, and strategies. So if you're like new to the work, jump in at getting started. And even if you're not new, you might get some new tips from that. Then finally, the last chapter of the book is really what prompted this book in the first place. When I was working with teacher team leaders all over, they would say, hey, Chad, how would you address this challenge or that challenge? People don't follow the norms, or they come to the meeting late all the time, or they don't do what we said we'd do in between meetings, or like we do the work, but we're just like spinning our wheels. Sound familiar? So I collected those, and that last chapter then takes all of the contents of the book and say, okay, here's how you might address that challenge, if that's a challenge that you have based on everything in the book. So that's kind of the layout. Being, doing. In the being, it's the roles, responsibilities, assumptions, mindsets. In the doing, it's each of these moves, techniques, and strategies broken into getting started, building momentum, overcoming obstacles, refining your skills, and then putting it all together into real world scenarios. And I am going to go into 3 of these during this time together. So, and remember, tweet out or tag me on LinkedIn or Facebook or on that webpage. I'll put it in here again. There's a contact me page, and you can newsletter that'll get you in as well. Approachable, credible voice, breathing, and inclusion. I just got a message that my microphone changed to the computer and then back to the earbuds. I'm assuming everybody can hear me, and if
Yep, I noticed that too, Chad. We sounded like a different microphone picked up, and now you're back with the earbuds.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that's about, but here we go. Credible and approachable voice. So this is one of the moves. So this is something that you do yourself as a teacher team leader to influence where the work of the team is going. So we have many continuums in our voice repertoire. And one of those continuums is this approachable and credible voice continuum. And so on one end of the continuum is a voice that is more credible. And in this voice, we speak with credibility. You'll notice that there's not a lot of modulation. And at the end of each phrase, the pitch goes down. You'll also notice that the chin tends to go down at the end of each phrase. That's credible voice. An example of credible voice that you might recognize is when James Earl Jones says the phrase, God rest his soul, right? When he would say, "This is CNN." That's a credible voice. There's no question about this being CNN. You're not thinking, am I watching Fox? No, this is CNN. So your news broadcasters tend to speak in a credible voice where the pitch goes down at the end. That's one end. On the other end of the approachable and credible voice continuum is the approachable voice. And what you'll notice with the approachable voice is it tends to go up and down a lot more, and the ends of phrases tend to go up. In addition, the head tends to move a lot more, and the hand gestures tend to move a lot. That head movement enables the voice to actually go up and down, because as the head moves, the vocal cords stretch and contract, and through that, the pitch goes up and down. And when you speak with an approachable voice, it's a very relationship-driven voice, and it's not a voice where people are going to listen, pay much attention to you. You can think about, first-year teachers, particularly at the beginning of the year, who tend to struggle with classroom management. It's because they're speaking like a middle schooler, and at the end of every phrase is going up. So I just modeled both of those for you, right? I spoke with a credible voice, and I spoke with an approachable voice. And so in a team meeting, one of the moves that you can use is when you're wanting to open up conversation with the team, you speak in an approachable voice. So as we're thinking about these different scenarios, which one or ones might we want to pursue first? As opposed to, as we're looking at these few options, which one or ones do we want to pursue first? You hear the difference? One is spoken with a credible, almost depressing in this case, the other one with approachable voice. So you, as that team leader, can think about, how am I going forward? So let me model a couple of examples here. And actually, you're muted. Nobody can see you. You're in the privacy of your office. So I encourage you, if you're not standing, like stand right now. We'll just do this together. We're going to say this together using a credible voice. So you can kind of get a sense of what this feels like with being intentional about your voice. So I got to get the chat out of the way. It keeps on making itself big. Let me just get this out of the way. Just close it. There we go. Okay. So, oops, get the credible voice. Here we go. There we go. Okay. So I'll model it for you, and then we can all do it together. So there are two topics today. First, how to start a meeting. Second is how to make that start meaningful. Okay. We can all do it together. Ready? There are two topics today. First, how to start a meeting. Second is how to make that start meaningful. You see how it goes down? There's very little modulation. Now let's try the approachable voice. I'll model it for you. As you review the agenda today, what might be something you would like to add? Okay, let's do that together. As you review the agenda today, what might be something you would like to add? Feel the difference? The head movement, the gestures, the intonation up and down. This credible and approachable voice is a really powerful tool that you can use to help move the team forward. If you're wanting to come to a conclusion about a decision, we're going to use more of a credible voice. If we want to open up the learning and thinking for the team, we want it to be more approachable. So I've talked at you a little bit about these different moves, techniques, and strategies, and specifically this move. Take a moment, chat in or put it in the handout. When might you need to be mindful of your voice continuum? Yes, I love that. Connections to the classroom. Absolutely. These skills are human skills. And so, absolutely, in the classroom, speaking in a lecture versus speaking to a student off topic. Absolutely. Absolutely. Lucy, mindful when we don't agree with others. Yes, exactly. Yeah, we tend to get into a credible voice when we go into like a fight or flight mode and we want to defend the position. Yep. Appraisal meetings, PD sessions. Yeah, absolutely. Hmm. Yeah, that credibility. So if this is a really good thing, like if you're perceived as not having credibility with your colleagues, try speaking more with a credible voice. See what kind of an impact that might have. Parent teacher conferences. Yeah. Yeah. When there's difficult, Marissa, thank you. When there's difficult conversations, we want to be more approachable to open up the space for thinking and learning. So this is awesome. I love it. Thank you all. So let's so that's just kind of like a couple-minute primer on approachable and credible voice. Let's dig into breathing now. Oh man, I love breathing. So what's cool about breathing? There's around 50 nonverbal patterns that we have as humans that are come naturally to us. Of those 50 patterns, breathing coupled with the pause is the single most impactful. Think about that. Like all the things you can do to influence your colleagues, breathing is the most important, and most of us don't even pay attention to it. It impacts how we communicate, it impacts our heart rate. This is pretty cool, right? Like when I take a deep breath, my heart rate slowed down, but so did yours. It also impacted your metabolism, your blood pressure, the oxygen in the bloodstream, which of course then impacts your brain. The breathing is the single most powerful tool we have. And I've done it several times during this session without you even knowing it. What I've done is subconsciously, well, not subconsciously, I've taken an inhale through my nose auditorily. And when I do that, 9 times out of 10, you do the same thing. It's just human nature. We just do it. So you can use breathing to help get the oxygen flowing, right? If there's conflict happening and people are down here in their amygdala, it's partly because the blood isn't getting to the prefrontal cortex. And you'll notice people aren't breathing. If people aren't breathing, they're breathing up here, shallow. It's shallow breaths as opposed to deep, relaxed, full breaths that really oxygenate the bloodstream. So I love this idea that which just plays out time and time again, that people who are doing good work and enjoying it are breathing together, not in unison, right? Like it's not like all are breathing, but they're breathing from the same location, pretty similar tempos in their breathing. So how do you get people to breathe together? You can't tell. In some teams, it might work. Hey, let's all just take a deep breath, right? But that's not what I'm advocating for because that might just be weird in some teams. But you can get people to breathe together. So first of all, notice where they're breathing from. Are they breathing shallow? That audible inhale that I already mentioned, right? So if I take an audible inhale coupled with breaking eye contact, because eye contact can be threatening. So if I break eye contact and take that audible inhale together with a frozen gesture, some of you said in there frozen gesture, like I just froze my gesture right there. I took an inhale and I held my hand in the same place with my eyes looking down. I just did a frozen gesture. All those things together allows people's metabolism to slow down, their breathing to become deeper, and their thinking processes to be clearer. As I mentioned, breaking eye contact, incorporating that pause with it, and the frozen gesture. So actually, I just had those all there without even going through it. So those are some tips with the breathing. So again, just chat in. Thinking about breathing, what next steps might you see for yourself? Love it. The time that it's taking for you to type has gotten longer and longer, which means the thinking is deeper and deeper. I love that. Ah, yes, Billy. Just noticing. Yeah, just pay attention. If they're breathing shallow from their shoulders quickly, or if they're breathing low, slow from the diaphragm. Thank you, Lucy. Same thing. Just notice. Yeah, that's a really great first step. Just notice, because most of us don't pay attention to where people are breathing from. So let's take a look now at one of the strategies. I don't remember who it was earlier. Said we don't want to waste 30 minutes of the meeting, right? And so this strategy of inclusion, this is what we do together, helps to make sure that we don't waste that time in the meeting. So an inclusion activity does three things. First of all, it focuses everybody's mental energy in a room. I was a high school principal, and early on in my first year as a principal, one of the teachers came to me, and God bless her, I love her for it. She came and she said, "You know, Chad, people don't care about your meetings." At first, I was really offended. I was like, "What do you don't care about my meetings?" And then I started to think about it a little bit more, and I realized, you know what? That's true. Nobody cares about anybody else's meeting. The only person that cares about their meeting is the person who's running the meeting. Nobody else cares. They're thinking about the phone call they need to make to a parent, the interaction they just had with a student, the email they need to send. Like, we're not thinking about the meeting. And so what inclusion does is it gets our mental energy in the room so that we are thinking about the meeting. The second thing it does is it gets everybody's voices in the room. We need to connect with each other, build community. And as we build that community, we connect not only to each other, but to the content, which makes an inclusion different from an icebreaker. Do not do icebreakers. Icebreakers tick off half the people in the room. Unless you're secondary, then it's more like 3/4. So an inclusion activity does these three things. It focuses the mental energy, gets everybody's voices, and it builds community. So here's some tips around inclusion. They got to be quick. No more than 3 minutes. Occasionally might go longer if you've got a longer meeting, but really it's like a 1 to 2, maybe a 3 minute. We're gonna get everybody's mental energy in the room and build community and connect to each other. I like to connect the inclusion to the norms of the team. So I might say, hey, project the norms on the screen and say, okay, so these are the norms that we have for ourselves. Which ones of these do you want to focus on for yourself today? You don't have to share out, but you can. People could share out, or it's just like, okay, make note of that. We'll come back to that at the end of the meeting, right? Which of these norms do you want to focus on? Which of these norms might be a struggle for you today? Which of these norms might be a struggle for us as a team today? Which of these norms might we need to focus on today? Same idea, just different little variations, right? But connecting that inclusion to the norms. I also like to think about using the inclusion with an outcomes and agenda. So we're taking and saying, okay, so here's the outcomes today. Here's the agenda for today. What are you most looking forward to? Again, 10 seconds to look at it. People can share around real quickly, but it's not a long icebreaker saying, if you were a color, what color would you be? This is focusing our mental energy on the meeting. I also think it's helpful to tie it to celebrations, right? Celebrations help us to solidify the culture of the school. And so tying that to the celebrations. So the inclusion is a really, really important tool to get the meeting started off right. And again, not a icebreaker, but an inclusion where we're getting everybody's voices in the room, we're focusing our mental energy, and we're building community as we connect with each other and with the content. So thinking about the role of an inclusion, take a moment. How do you envision using inclusion to start meetings, chat it in, or make notes? Thank you, Billy. Yeah. So I do want to point out that the inclusion that I did on this was at the beginning with the picture. I said a picture's worth 1,000 words. With that in mind, what are some words or phrases that come to mind as you look at this picture? That was the inclusion, right? Buying the celebrations, yeah. Yeah, and I didn't say much about that, but celebrations could be just as, okay, so these are the commitments that we have as a team. Who wants to celebrate something they've done or that they've seen a colleague do in the last week around these commitments? Awesome. Cool. The celebrations are coming up and tying that to the celebrations. Everybody having a voice. Thank you. All right, dear friends, we've come to that point in time where I left a few minutes for us to have some Q&A as well as identifying next steps. So thinking about these were the outcomes, understanding the 3 responsibilities, under the assumptions and mindsets for successful collaboration, and then we explored 3 simple actions. So I don't know, Arlen, can they unmute to be able to ask their question, or you want questions in the chat, or what would you like?
Yeah, the chat, usually the best way to pop in your question or comment for Chad. If you do have something you'd like to share out verbally, you can raise your hand using the reaction button down in your Zoom toolbar, and then I can allow you to unmute yourself. But absolutely, chat is a fast and easy way for us to gather those questions and your thoughts for Chad while we've got a few minutes left.
Perfect. And we can also go back to a couple of those moves, techniques, or strategies that people said, hey, what are those? What are certain things that pique my curiosity? So if you wanted one of those to be hit, I'm losing them right now, but if you wanted one of those to be hit, just type it back in and I can give you a little primer on one of them. And yes, Katie, thank you. That intentionality of inclusion is very important, right? Okay, Billy, how did you change your meetings after your teacher told you your opinion? Did you use one of these strategies? I did not know these strategies at that time, and so when they said that, I just kind of reflected. And I don't I don't know if I actually did make many changes. So these moves, techniques, and strategies I've learned over the course of the last, well, probably originally 20 when I first started teaching 25, 26 years ago, but they've really honed in the last probably 10 or 12 years where I started to study the work of Michael Grinder and Kendall Zoller and others. And so unfortunately, I don't think I did really change much other than to say, well, their staff meetings. Knowing what I know now, I would have started with inclusions to get the mental energy focused in the room. Marissa, anonymize it. Yes. So anonymize it. So anonymize it is a really important strategy when you're coming to consensus as a team, or to if you're sensing that folks are not sharing their perspectives. So we get their perspectives anonymously. So I'll give you an example. This had a couple of things, had a couple of these moves and techniques. So I was working with a first grade team that was not very happy with me, and the first time I was with them, holy cow, it was a rough meeting. And so the next time I went back, we were in the same room. And so I made a decision that we needed to decontaminate the space. That's one of the techniques, is to decontaminate space, because there was a negative energy in that room, right? Like they came in and there was a negativity to it. So we decontaminated space by I totally moved the tables. We moved in a separate location. We turned the projector. We had, like, everything was different. And then, as part of also decontaminating the space, I also combined it with anonymizing it. So I had people write down on sticky notes what has gone well for themselves as a team on one color sticky note, and on another what has not gone well that they want to improve. And then we put those in baskets and drew them out. So that way, and then people took different people's notes. So then the perspectives were being shared anonymously. So we're not, so I'm not sharing my own perspective. I'm sharing a perspective of somebody else. So when I anonymize it, it's because there's not social safety, there's not, or psychological safety, there's not the ability to speak their mind. So we need to get everybody's voices in the room in an anonymous way. That's what anonymize it is. Thank you, Katie. Thinking about high functioning, how team. Katie, okay. So how to help teams truly be honest and reflective? Is that what your question is, Katie? So that they're not, yeah, okay, yeah. So anonymize it. Actually, linking back to Marissa is key, right? So using some kind of a self-assessment tool that people do anonymously, and then we bring those results together to look at it, which also then relates to data usage, right? And then we can track that over time. Yes, absolutely. People don't, I like to sometimes use the phrase, people don't know what they don't know, right? And so we want to help build that capacity through self-assessment and reflection. Holy cow, this was a wonderful time with you all. Have loved engaging with you all. And I just want to take a minute or two and think about the entire time that we've been together. And let's just take 30 seconds. Individually jot down, or just reflect to yourself. No need to chat it in. Where and how will you use these skills? What next steps do you see for yourself? About 10 more seconds. So the book is available on Amazon or through Solution Tree. I'll give away a few. So if you haven't tweeted out or gone on LinkedIn or Facebook, or if you sign up for my newsletter to follow that tiny URL, there's a contact Chad link where you can sign up for my monthly newsletter. It's just once a month. I write about education topics, PLC, leadership, and ribs. I like barbecue ribs, so I try to write about whatever ribs I had during the month as well. But I won't spam you. You can get out any time. But if you'd like to get in on a book giveaway, newsletter or Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, make sure you tag me, and I'll get some books sent out to folks.
All right, Chad, we want to thank you so much for your time with us this afternoon, all these amazing strategies for becoming the best teacher team leader that you can be. Excellent work. Make sure to follow Chad on X and Facebook and LinkedIn. Again, we want to win one of those free books. I'll be doing that myself. See if I can't snag one of those via one of those means. Thank you to all for your participation as well today in the chat. Always great to have an engaged audience, and we do so well with these Ed Leaders Network live webinars, getting people here and getting them engaging with a live presenter, which is fantastic. So any final questions before we close out can be typed into the chat. If you're all good and all set, you are free to log out of the session. I'm going to stop the recording.